So I want to look at the rest of your rankings here.
All right, let's go.
Dolphins 3. I can't argue. I have the Chiefs and Bills ahead of the Dolphins.
That's fair.
But the Dolphins, if they beat the Bills, I'll probably put them at 3 as well.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Browns at 6. I like that. I have the Browns at 8. The Browns 2 great wins, one nearly win. Then the Lions you have at 7. You've dropped the Ravens, Cowboys, and then this is something that I really I'm not sure if I
understand
I
this one. This one's a little needs
Tell them
explanation.
who you have at number 10.
Number 10, I have the Buccaneers, and
so,
I know.
So 25 to 11. Walk me through it. What do you see?
So I see this. The Buccaneers defensively were able to stop the Eagles, not greatly, but given what the Eagles have and given what the Bucs have, I think that the Bucs did a pretty decent job. They held them to 25. They did the same thing with the Patriots. The Patriots held the Eagles to 25. I think that's a reasonable number to heed the Eagles at. I think they did a pretty good job. Offensively speaking, I think they really were that offense coordinator, man. Whoever your offense coordinator is, I appreciate you trying to start the run game, but it was just not working yesterday. Run game was not working yesterday. I think that was an offensive coordinator problem yesterday. Offensive line speaking, they had a great pass block. Wide receivers, they got open. I just think it's just another thing about the Eagles. They just weren't converting those touchdowns. They weren't getting to that midfield point. Well, the Eagles get to the midfield, but the Buccaneers were just having a hard time against that Eagles defense. And I have the Eagles defense as the 4th, and honestly, they could arguably be top 3. But I think yesterday it proved to the Bucs that they need to work on their offense, and they definitely need to work on that running game because that running game is just terrible.
So you think you have the Bucs as the 18th best offense. You have them as the 8th defense. And
yes.
So I'm going to give you a pitch, and I know you're going to argue, but this is, in my opinion, the Seahawks. So you have it 20. I think the Seahawks should be at that 10 spot.
That's fair, and a lot of analysts do.
Everyone, all of the analysts finally think the Hawks are a borderline top 10 team, which is all I've been asking for. I still have them at 6. Obviously, 6 is a little high, but Seattle against Tampa. Look at this comparison here. Who is Tampa beat?
Tampa's beating Seahawks.
They beat no, they're not. So
Tampa's going to beat.
In this season, we don't play each other in this season. But
that's true.
In this season, Tampa has beaten the
Vikings.
The Vikings, who are 0-3.
0-3, but they played 3 really good teams. Then Buccaneers, including themselves.
And then week 2, who'd they beat?
They beat the Bears.
They beat the Bears, who are
0-3. But of course, they're the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah. And the Seahawks, we beat the Panthers, who are also 0-3, but we also beat the Lions, who are 2-1.
I thought so. This was
the
my
Bucs
thought.
Don't have a marquee victory, and Seattle
Whoa! I think week one was a marquee victory.
The Vikings are terrible.
No. Vikings were 13.
You have the Vikings at 23.
Okay, so let's explain this.
I have the Vikings at 23 also. So we are spot on about the Vikings.
So here's the thing about the Vikings. Going into this season, everyone was thinking 13-3 last season. They gotta be a playoff team this year. And that's why I saw the Vikings.
I picked them to miss the playoffs.
But you saw they were a good team this year, or at least decent. At least decent.
I thought they were average at best.
That's probably a more fair assessment. But the thing is that this is a key. This was a key marquee win for the Buccaneers because they go into USA Bank Stadium. They go beat the Vikings at home. They hold the Vikings to 17 points. That's a high-powered offense, and they only hold them to 17 points.
Well, Kirk Cousins, they made a lot of fumbles.
That's also true.
The Vikings beat themselves.
But even with all that, they still held them to 17.
Which team has a better quarterback, Bucs or Seahawks? This shouldn't be a question. Gino's been better this year.
I thought for a second I thought you said Vikings.
A week ago, you could argue Baker was better. But now you can't after last night.
I think last night
Baker was terrible.
Well, Baker had to face against the Eagles' defensive line, which is probably one of.
And Gino had a bad game too against the Rams. But looking at all 3 games, Gino's been better.
I think if you look at all 3 games, yes, Gino's probably.
And Gino was better last year too.
That's also true. Well, Baker played.
So we'll say Gino's the better quarterback. How about coach? Which team is the better coach?
Coach.
You can't tell me
You
that
can't-
Todd
you-
Bowles is a better coach than
I'm
Pete
not
Carroll.
going to argue that. I never was.
Pete Carroll's Super Bowl.
And I was just taken aback by the fact you asked the question because I think
Yeah.
we all know Pete Carroll is the better coach.
Pete Carroll's better coach. Who has the better? Well, okay, offensive line, they're pretty even. Right now, the Bucs are better because the Seahawks are injured.
That's
so
true.
we'll give 2 points to the Seahawks, 1 point to the Bucs. Who has the better run game?
The Seahawks, because
Seahawks,
the
yeah.
Bucs run game is atrocious.
So Kenneth Walker, way better than Rashad White.
Yeah.
Receivers, I think it's close.
I would give it
I
to
think-
this.
I think right now they're almost a dead even because Mike Evans is better than DK as a number 1, but I think Tyler's a better number 2 than Chris Godwin.
I don't know. I think Chris Godwin's probably the better number 2.
I don't know, man. Chris Godwin hasn't done
I
much
think
this
it's
year.
arguable.
I'll tell you this: once Jackson Smith-Njigba is actually a part of our offense, then Seattle will have better receivers. But I'm gonna call it a tie. I think we'll call it a wash.
Okay.
Tight ends between the Seahawks, Noah Fant, Kobe Parkinson, Will Dissly. All 3 of those guys would be the number 1. The Bucs have Kate Otten, so that's not even a question.
True.
So 4-1. Then you look at defense.
Defense is the Bucs. You can't.
Well, the defensive line is the Bucs, so I'll give them D-line.
No.
That's
not
4-2.
Not just
But
the
the secondary, you cannot argue the
I can
Seahawks
definitely
secondary with Quandre Diggs, with a healthy Jamal Adams, who we're gonna see next week. We're getting Reek. Why am I forgetting? Reek Woolen. We're getting Reek Woolen next week again. Healthy Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon. That is arguably the best secondary in the league on paper. We have
on paper.
2 absolute superstar shutdown corners if Witherspoon keeps getting better. Reek Woolen had like 7 picks last year. Then we got Quandre Diggs, who is the new Cam Chancellor. Not as good as Cam, but he plays exactly the same style. And Jamal Adams as your other safety to finally get Julian Love out of the picture. I think the Seahawks secondary is better.
Maybe now. I think Jamal Adams comes back next week.
Next week.
I think in
he's
2
coming
weeks
back.
because next week I'm not going to say that next week's the test. This week's the test because you play against the Giants. That's not really a test. Who do you play after the Giants?
Then
go
we have
on.
a bye, and then it's the Bengals.
Okay.
In Cincinnati.
So I think the Bengals will be determined of whether or not that secondary for the Seahawks is good because right now I do not trust that secondary for the Seahawks, and I hope for your sake, and I hope for every Seahawks fan's sake that they actually do approve that secondary moving forward because it was atrocious these last few weeks.
Even still, call it a tie on the secondary and give the win to the Bucs on linebackers because I don't know who they have for linebackers, but admittedly,
they have David White.
Outside of Jordan Brooks and an aging Bobby Wagner, our linebacking core is not great. So now and special teams, you got to give it to the Seahawks for having the best punter in the league, Michael Dixon.
That's also true.
Neither of us have great kickers. Jason Myers had a good week last week, finally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 5-3. Seahawks have it.
No, I just don't see it.
Well,
because
I just laid it out to you.
No. That's the thing. You can compare them individually, but when you put them in a game, you just see the high-powered offense of the Seahawks face against the good defense of the Bucs, and then you have the bad defense.
You're overrating their defense.
Maybe I am, but your run game is going to be stopped, and you're going to be forced into the pass.
We're not, and we're good in the pass. Gino's good.
I know that's where
our offense we would drop 30 on the Bucs, guaranteed.
All right. Well, next time, maybe if you play them next season, we'll see if they stay
Maybe in the playoffs.
Maybe
there's a chance that the Seahawks. Honestly, it is very possible that the Bucs could win the South, and the Seahawks could get the number 5 the number 1 wild card because the Niners win the West, and then the Bucs are the 4, we're the 5. Then we would play them in Tampa. That's very possible.
That's very possible.
Personally, I think it's between the Saints. I think the Saints. I still think it's their division to lose, but I think all 4.
Well, I don't know because Carr's injured, and it's gonna be a week by week.
Only for a few weeks. I think all 4 of those teams have a shot at it. I think even
the Panthers are 0-3.
Even the Panthers, because they're 0-3, but they have had the lead at halftime all 3 of their games.
Yeah.
They were up on the Falcons. They were up on the Saints, or they were tied with the Saints, and then they were up on Seattle at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
Then all 3 games they completely fell apart in the second half. But if they can put that together, they can be a decent team.
Yeah, I definitely.